Welcome to the Business Spotlight Series. My name is Donna Kapmeyer, and I'm the CEO and firm owner of ActionCOACH, the Coastal Bend, and Capital Game Plan Consulting in beautiful and hot South Texas. And I will be your host for today. I'm very excited to have our special guest, Sarah Irwin, on our show. Sarah is a co-founder and CEO of Luke's Lodge and Dog Training. And today we're going to speak with Sarah about her journey to get to where she's at today and the challenges and successes of owning and operating a business. If this is your first time on our channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can get notifications when we publish new content. Well, Sarah, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
We are as well. So let's talk a little bit about how your business is structured. You are a co-founder and CEO. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so Luke's Lodge is a family-run business. So my wife, Alora, and I co-own it together. Alora comes from years of veterinary experience. She started as a kennel tech. She eventually moved up to be a hospital manager in her last role. From that, she gained a lot of understanding of people and of animals and kind of the link and the bonds that they share. So she's our head trainer and handles all the hands-on work with clients and their dogs. And I manage kind of the business side of things, operations, logistics, kind of strategy. And I help her whenever she needs extra hands. It's just the two of us, and we're building something that we really believe in, and we're trying to do that kind of from the ground up.
Fantastic. So when did y'all start this business?
I geez, I'm pretty sure we started it in 2023.
Okay.
The beginning of 2023. We initially started with a couple of partners, another couple that we had done some training with in other spaces, and they decided that owning a business wasn't for them, which is totally fine. And so they are working in another company, but we're still really close with them.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, I'm glad that you are both in this business and are off to a really good start. So let me ask you this, right? So you had some folks that got in and got out. So why did you choose to go into this business for yourself, or why did you both choose to go into this business?
Yeah, so Alora worked at a couple different companies prior to us starting this, and most of these dog training companies were kind of a one size fits all method,
Okay.
which didn't work for her, and it kind of limited her ability to do what she knew was best for dogs and for their owners. And so after looking at a lot of different companies that had openings for trainers and the compensation structure, we said, you know what? Let's just do this ourselves. There's nothing stopping us. You can provide the same level of service to people, but without having to be confined by somebody else's idea of what good training is.
Okay. So if you look at that space, right, you looked at what was not working, or you felt that you might be able to differentiate yourself. What do you find to be, I'll call it your unique selling proposition, or your unique value proposition, and who is your target market?
Yeah, so we we focus on authenticity, right? We aren't the training company that's going to tell you that we'll get your dog to walk off leash with you at the Pearl during market days in 2 weeks. We're the kind of company that says we're going to do what we can to help you meet your training goals, which isn't always to have your dog walk off leash at the Pearl on a market day. Sometimes it's to have your dog not bite your kid, or to have your dog not freak out every time the Roomba's rolling around. And so we are unique, not to every training company. There's other training companies that do this, but to a lot of the big competitors, we're unique because we are tailored training. We tailor to financial situations, we tailor to training goals, we tailor to where your dog is in life and where you are in life. Some people aren't going to be able to use some tools, or they're not going to feel comfortable with it, even if they learn how to use them. So we want to figure that out on the front end and not just take a dog in, use tools on it, and then say, here's your dog and all the tools that you need to continue this, and have people that are like, oh no. Um, and we don't guarantee anything, right? A lot of big companies, they guarantee that your dog's going to do this or that. We don't do that because it's not realistic. The only way that you can guarantee training for most dogs is through not great means of training. We guarantee that we're going to work with your dog to figure out what motivates it, to try and get it some basic obedience commands, and to figure out how you can continue that training, because training is a journey. It's not a one-step process.
You're right. So do you find that, so you're 2 years into this, do you find that with not having that guarantee, right? Because you said it's not realistic. Do you find that people are open to that or like, well, why don't you guarantee it like the others do? Or what does that conversation look like?
For me, most of the time when I have that conversation, it's kind of like this, right? I'm
Yeah.
open and transparent about why we don't make that guarantee and why it's unrealistic that other companies do. Sure, I could say that your dog is guaranteed to be able to sit as long as you do, this many training sessions per week with your dog in exactly the manner that we showed you how to do it. But that's not realistic, right?
Yeah.
That's not how people bring their dog home and interact with them. Some people, yeah, their dog does really great because they put in the work that they need to. And some people, their dog is better than it was before, but they're not going to be competing in obedience competitions anytime soon. And people understand that. They get it, right? They know that it depends on the amount of work you put in, and I'm not going to guarantee something that is dependent on what you do. And most people, I haven't had anyone that's given me any flack about it. I think most of them are encouraged by the fact that we're straightforward and we're not just using gimmicks of get this and it's free and it's only $4,000 or whatever.
Right. Very good. Um, I have another question for you, and I just lost my train of thought on it.
I believe it.
It's onto that. Uh, so tell me a little bit, right? You're 2 years into this, and you've had to have experienced some hurdles. What kind of challenges have you faced, being that you're just 2 years into this, and how have you overcome them?
I think our initial biggest hurdle, right, was just getting set up with the proper contracts and that kind of stuff, which is
Uh,
where my background came in handy a lot. But a lot of our hurdles are just about trying to make sure that what we are telling clients that we're going to do as far as communication, right? The training part of it is what it is, and that's
Mhm.
kind of that's the easy part of the business is the training. The hard part is making sure that you're managing expectations well, that you're communicating well, and setting up processes that didn't make it forced touch-ins, right? A lot of the companies that we've had experience with, what they do is they require every day that you do a report card on every dog that you're training. So
Mhm.
you end up with a bunch of kind of generic, we worked on this, here's a video, and it doesn't mean a lot. And nobody ever looks at it. And all it is a method for the company to make sure their trainers are doing what they're supposed to do. Instead, we've tried to focus on it's not going to be every day, it's going to be every couple of days. If you're curious about what's going on with your dog, reach out, right? We use our personal cell phone numbers for all of our communication so that people always have access to us. That doesn't mean we're going to respond, right? That doesn't mean if you text us at 11:45 and are like, hey, just checking in, that we're going to respond. But it does mean that you know that the number you're texting is the first phone I'm going to look at in the morning. That if there's an emergency, when you call me, that's going to be the phone that's on my bedside table. Um, and just kind of managing the expectations of clients with what makes sense for the way that we operate has been a big hurdle. And then there's always the hurdle of owning a business with your spouse, right? I come from a legal and business minded background, and she comes from a dog minded background and a client minded background. And while our end goals are virtually the same, how we get there and what we feel like we need to prioritize sometimes isn't exactly the same. And so learning how to have those conversations and then kind of leave them in the kennel when it's time to go home and just be family, even though it's all at home. But
I love the way you say leave it at the kennel or in the kennel. And because so many spouses that work together can't do that. It's with them 24/7. So I love the fact that you're able to, and I love your terminology that you're able to do this because it's really hard to disconnect when you're with each other all the time, or in a
yeah,
personal and in a business setting.
yeah. And I think one of the things that we've really done is, and this is unique to us, right? Not everybody's going to be able to do this. This is Alora's passion, right? This is her baby. This is what she has wanted to do for a long time. I'm there to support her. So if we have, a disagreement about something, yeah, I'll plead my case. But at the end of the day, I acknowledge and will always acknowledge that she has the final say in what we do. And that, isn't how everybody operates. And some people are operating a business that's both of the people's passions. This
Hmm.
isn't my passion. I mean, I love it, but if Alora was gone, I'm not going to be running a dog training company, right? Um, Alora is the nuts and bolts of this. And so if she is convinced that we need to go a certain path, as long as I'm not like, oh, that's illegal, we go down that path. And sometimes we find out that wasn't the best option and we reevaluate and we look at something different. But at the end of the day, we've decided, or I've decided, I don't know, that she gets the final say and somebody has to get the final say or you're going to ruin your business and your marriage if you're not careful.
Very good. Very well said. You've drawn that line and you made it very clear. I love it. Um, so let's talk about where this business is headed. Where do you and Laura see this business going in the next 3 to 5 years? What does that look like?
Yeah. So from I guess kind of a small like the real perspective of what's realistic, right? We're trying to incorporate more virtual training options. We
Okay.
have a lot of connections in Southeast Texas, which means we have a lot of people who are reaching out for training, help, and advice who are sometimes too far to actually benefit from our services. We have trained dogs from Southeast Texas. We've met halfway and picked them up, or we've picked them up while we're down there. But a lot of people don't need a full on board and train session. They just need some lessons. And instead of doing weird, splotchy FaceTime calls, we're trying to implement and to create more virtual options that are both, a program that's pre-designed so people can just watch videos on demand, and then more of a one-on-one, let's discuss what you're looking for kind of thing. And then under kind of the general heading, we're also starting to look at purposeful breeding for companion dogs. We've got some breeding dogs. It's going to be mezzo poodles. We have some mini to standard size poodles. So we're looking at what some people call Moyen, but it's classified as in other countries. So they're smaller standard size poodles or larger size mini poodles that are the perfect size for. I can't imagine who they're not the perfect size for. I love them. We've got 3 dogs already that are part of this program. We have one that's we're hoping to breed pretty soon. And I mean, they're wonderful dogs. They're all health tested. And so a lot of what goes into, dog behavior has to do with genetics and where they're coming from. And so we want to create, a program where we know that we can get people dogs that are going to be good dogs, healthy dogs that are going to be able to be trained well and to do the things that people want to do with them.
Awesome. I've never heard of that breed or that. Now you said they're the perfect size. How big are they? That's what I want to
So
know.
yeah, so ours range right now from 20 to 30 pounds, and
Okay.
they're that's kind of the range we're looking at. Our two that are still about a year off from being able to be part of the program, they're both 20 pounds and they are adorable. They're perfect. They're the size that you can still pick them up and carry them. One of ours is trained to jump into my arms, right? And it's not crazy wild to have that dog. I have other dogs that would love to jump into my arms who are a little bit too large for that. But they're good for, they're not delicate like a lot of mini poodles are teeny tiny and delicate. They're super
Mhm.
smart. They're adorable. I mean, poodles are cute, right? And the neat thing about poodles is if you like doodles, you can get them the same haircut. And you get all the benefits of having that purebred, knowing where they came from, knowing their health, knowing what their temperament's probably going to be like.
Crazy. That's so awesome. Well, I've got a dog and his name is Cormac and he's a terrier mix, but he weighs about 65 pounds and
Oh
he
boy.
thinks he's a lap dog
Oh yeah.
and very social, but yeah, he thinks that yes, even though he thinks he's little, he wants to
Yeah.
be that lap dog.
The
Um,
big ones always do.
love him to death. But man, I'm excited about that new venture for you both. So let's talk a little bit about success. And what is your definition of success? And what do you find your keys to success?
Yeah, I mean, success for us looks like happy clients, right? It looks like whatever that client's goal was, meeting that goal or exceeding that goal. You know, and that varies. We don't do particular, like, we typically don't do severe aggression cases, but we've worked with dogs who are having some kind of aggressive behaviors or anxious behaviors. And a lot of times their goal is just to be able to take their dog out places and not have them try to bite people. Um, and that can be the biggest success, right? That dog might
Yeah,
not be able
sure.
to sit or lay down or do anything else, but if it won't bite people, that's what's important. Or it might be somebody that really wants to have, you know, a dog that's ready to start, you know, doing agility classes at a facility and they need their dog to be able to sit and stay and do certain things. Just having that client that says, wow, like I'm so happy with where we've come. And I think the most success we see is when we have the clients that keep in touch, right? The clients that tell us, hey, I took the girls out to dinner tonight and they did so well. That's when we're happy, right? Is when the people that we've worked with are happy and they're working with their dogs in a way that creates a bond that is a lot deeper than just having a dog that knows how to sit for anybody.
Fantastic. Do you find, is there any kind of age where of a dog where you say, you know what, they're beyond training, if you will, or does it matter what the age of the dog is? Y'all have the ability to help them.
Yeah, not I mean not typically. We we generally don't really start our real obedience training until they're at least 5 or 6 months old. We do offer puppy training that's more of a potty training and just like learning how to be a family member kind of training. But as far as upper age limits, we haven't had a dog that we've said, oh no, they're too old. I mean, we have an 18-year-old dog that we teach to do new things all the time. Um, he does it, you know, on his own time and when he feels like it, but he knows how to do it, right? I think you have to manage expectations sometimes a little bit more when you get dogs that are, you know, upper in the years, or when they're really young, right? Because they develop at different levels. You know, we've had a beagle that was 6 months old that did outstanding. And then we've had huskies who are 6 months old that have no idea what they're doing, right? And it's like kids. Some 2-year-old kids can potty train. Some of them it's going to take them till they're 3. Um, but there's not really a limit to where you say, oh no, this dog's it already knows what it does and it knows what it knows and we're not going to teach it anything. There's no dogs are too old to learn new tricks.
All right, so then that phrase, right, is not true anymore, right? You can't teach an old dog new tricks is not valid. You debunked it.
Not valid. Yeah.
All righty, fantastic. Well, as a business owner, let's talk a little bit more about that. What kind of advice would you give to other business owners who are listening to this podcast?
I think you just have to make sure that what you're doing is what you care about and what you're passionate about, right? Alora is in it because she's passionate about the dogs and the training, and I'm in it because I'm passionate about Alora and her achieving her dreams, and also it being dogs and training is a nice little side piece. Um, but if you don't love what you're doing, you're not going to put your all into it. You have to, you know, balance work and home life, especially if you're trying to do it with somebody in your family. You have to learn how to have that distinction and how to turn off work, especially when you're doing something from home, which is so common nowadays, that people are working out of their homes, so they're starting their businesses at home. And it's hard, right, to turn that off and to say, okay, now we're just family time. We're not talking about the business. And learning how to set those barriers. You have to set barriers, you know, with yourself, your business partners, with your clients, and teaching people these are what my barriers are and this is where my boundaries are. And once you have that in place, you're going to do really well as long as you care what you're doing.
Well said. Well said. So every business has its set of challenges. If you were to think about kind of what is your number one challenge in your business that you're facing today, what are you experiencing and what would you like to overcome?
Yeah, I mean, I think our biggest challenge is kind of marketing. A lot of our referrals I mean, a lot of our business comes from referrals,
Okay.
which is great. But eventually, we're going to run out of people who know people who have used us or something. And so we are not the best at organic marketing, right? We don't post on our Facebook enough. We don't post on Instagram enough. And so trying to build that out more in a way that's manageable for us based on our time constraints and that works for our business model. Is, you know, we know what works for other things, but this is a kind of specialized industry and there's so many competitors in our area. So figuring out how to kind of set us apart in our marketing without having to spend hours and hours and hours in our marketing.
I hear you, and you're not alone on that. I mean, that's probably one of the, time is a pretty high on people's lists as far as time management goes, but marketing is another one, right? Especially in the age that we're in now, where so many things are digital, right? And we have that whole other space to play in. So you are not alone. And I said the majority of business owners, small business owners, and mid-sized do struggle with that same thing. You got it.
Yep.
How do I get to that market and get that visibility? But
Yep.
referrals are your number one method
Oh, 100%. And they're
all
great.
day.
And but you don't want to totally rely on them. And I mean we've tried and been unsuccessful with a couple different things, right? We put a sign out on a golf course or something to see if that would work. It didn't. We didn't get a single call. And it's trial and error, right? We've talked to a bunch of different marketing people who specialize in the dog industry, who don't specialize, and they have all kinds of different ways. But our bottom line is we're not going to change how we operate. We just need to know how, or we need to figure out how to really highlight how we operate in a way that does make sense digitally. Because that is where everybody gets everything. And dog training's kind of hard to say what you've done without sounding gimmicky. So many of the dog trainers talk about their success in getting this dog to walk off leash or to do this. And it just feels really gimmicky a lot of the time. And I may be alone in that, right? Clients may not feel that way, and that's fine. But I want to be authentic to who we are, and I want our marketing to reflect who we are as a business and who we are as people.
Love it. Love it. Stay genuine, stay authentic. And I always say be the best version of yourself that you can.
Mm-hmm.
So well said. People, don't often do this on their own. They've got mentors or they've got people who have influenced them, or they reach out to books to get continuing education. Do you have anybody that you'd like to share with our audience who has either been a mentor to you, or are there any particular books that you have been reading that might help other business owners that are watching this podcast be a better version of themselves?
Yeah, I mean, as far as books I've been reading, I haven't got all the way through it, but Let Them by Mel Robbins is a fantastic book and a fantastic concept. I've been trying to practice the let them theory, both personally and professionally across all of my professional endeavors, because it's really easy to take things personally, and to kind of get in the why would they do this to me? Why is this happening? When it's not about you, it's about them, and there's no reason to stress about things you can't fix. Um, and then I think as far as mentors go, although it's great to have mentors that are in your same industry, and I mean, Alora has a lot of trainers that are in different respects for mentors and whatnot. A lot of it is just finding other businesses of the same kind of size as you are, right? And being friends with them and seeing what's working for them, what's not working for them. And that can be, I mean, from marketing to the tools that you're using in your business, right? Talking to other businesses about whether it makes more sense to use QuickBooks or some free version, or whether it is better to use Clover or one of the other payment processors, because I can't think of a single other. Stripe, there we go.
Mhm.
What makes the most sense for them, and figuring out how to streamline things in a way that makes sense, because a lot of every business is the back end, right? And understanding the back end, but also having legal advisors. I mean, we don't have necessarily a dedicated legal advisor because that's kind of me, but as an attorney who represents small businesses and other businesses, understanding that while you're building your business, that's the time to put all those, structures in place to protect yourself. It's not to say, this is how we're doing it, handshake deals, and everything's good until it's not, and then try to implement that. And that's not the fun part of starting a business at all. The paperwork
No.
and the getting everything set up and the talking to the insurance companies, that's not fun. But it's really important. And it's the way that you can protect yourself so that you can continue doing this, even if something goes wrong early on.
Very good. Yeah, it's the stuff that happens behind the scenes that nobody wants to deal with, right? Because the passion isn't in that, right? The passion is in the
Yeah.
service that they're providing, but it's a necessary evil, and at the end of the day, you do have to protect yourself. And
Yep.
if you want to scale, right, you've got to find those systems and put those systems in place that could help you do that effectively.
Hmm.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you would like our audience to know about you and or the business?
No, I mean, I think it's just important for all business owners to just keep in mind that your business can be your passion and it can be something that you really want to dedicate yourself to, but it can't be your life. You have to make time for other things. Even if you love what you do, sometimes you have to step away and do something else that you like to do, or maybe you don't like to do. One of the biggest things for us has been taking time away from the dogs, right? We own a lot of dogs, but we also have dogs that board with us. And that can make it really hard to schedule time to not be there with the dogs. So we've been working really, really hard to, structure our schedules in a way that we can take, a weekend and just be us, whether or not we actually leave the house, but we have some independent contractors that we trust that come in and help with any boarding dogs and with our dogs, um, that we, trust and have good character and all that good stuff. Uh, just so we can take some space away from the business, because sometimes that's when you have your best ideas about what you can do next, right? Is when you fully pull away from whatever it is that you've been focused on and you focus on something else. That's when the great idea comes. That's when maybe we should do a virtual training program. We could do, videos or whatever. That's when those ideas come. They don't come when you're trucking through all the other stuff.
Oh my God, you could not have said that better, because that is so true. But you have to have the discipline to be able to break away in order for that to occur, because you are 100% right. It doesn't happen when you're in the day to day and when you're in the grind. You've got to separate yourself. And they're like, oh, how come I didn't think about that earlier? It's right, because you can't clear your brain. So thank you for sharing that. What's the best way for our audience to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so they can visit our website, which is lukeslodge.com. Luke, like the short name for Lucas. And then our emails are on there. Email is a terrible way to communicate with me because I have to use email so many other places that I neglect every other email account I have. So our phone numbers, we do text and calling. My number is 409-626-0100, and Alora's is 409-543-8777. And as long as you tell us who you are and you're not Mr. Mark who wants to know if his chauffeur can drop off some dogs without a contract for 2 weeks, we're gonna be happy to talk to you. We might seem a little aggressive at first because we get a lot of weird spammy stuff that comes through like Mr. Mark. But just verify that you're a human and we're happy to discuss anything you'd like.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Sarah, and thank you for sharing your story. This has been fantastic, and I know that our audience will find your information very valuable. This is the Business Spotlight series with Donna Kapmeyer from Action Coach of Coastal Bend and Capital Game Plan Consulting, and Sarah Irwin with Luke's Lodge and Dog Training. Please be sure to like and subscribe so you can continue to see our great content. Thank you for being with us today. And Sarah, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Bye for now.